Why, hello there YouTube, and welcome to this month's Horror Talk. So yes, it's the monthly show where I, Random Ross, get a particular horror franchise and I just discuss it and talk about it. About things in the series and what I liked about it, or how I'd rank the films in a franchise or whatever. If it is a horror franchise I discuss, but it is this month, and this month's topic is on the Paranormal Activity franchise. Yes, the notorious found footage supernatural franchise, where it's all found footage and it follows a particular family, or at least a particular entity that haunts you whilst you sleep. So, this started off as an online film. So, pretty much like Blair Witch, it started off online. It started with the first one in 2007. The first film, 2007, was written and directed by Oren Pally, and starred Katie Fetherson or something, and Mika Solat or something. This was released online on the 14th of October 2007, and those who could access it watched it, and they were terrified and were very convinced that they were watching a real Paranormal Activity experience of a couple, because it focused on a couple as they slept at night. What we at first think is a ghost, but then turns out to be none other than a demonic entity. And it was then released worldwide theatrically on September 25th, 2009 in the States, and around November 2009 in the UK. So, had the production companies for this were Blumhouse and distributed by Paramount. So, yeah, what started off as just a film being made online became a big success, and 2 years later it was released worldwide. So the film, excuse me, follows couple Katie and Mika, both actors using their real names in this film, where Mika gets a camcorder and films their progress and daily life and everything, and Mika is convinced that a ghost is stalking them and haunting them whilst they sleep. So Mika sets up the camera to go on night vision, and we see all this paranormal activity whilst they sleep. At first starting off as nothing but the door moving and creaking, and it just deteriorates from there. They even get a demonologist, and he tells them that he's not fully trained to deal with these things. Also, he says, don't get a Ouija board, because you'll just be opening the door and inviting it in. And what do you think Mika does? He buys a bloody Ouija board. So yeah, and next thing you know, even more sinister things unfold. Like, Katie tells this demonology guy that these all started when she was 8. There was like a shadow at the foot of her bed, a house burnt down, and that. And I have to admit, it does get kind of spooky in that. Now, first time I watched this film, I wasn't scared. I was just sat there, like, pretty much thinking, nothing's really happening, just things are moving around and that. And then, at the end, in fact, probably the only interesting part of this film is the ending, where Katie wakes up at 3 a.m. and stares at Mika, and then next thing she screams, and Mika goes down to investigate, and then next thing it breaks into an abrupt silence. Then we hear footsteps coming up, and then next thing Mika's thrown into the camera, and Katie goes up to the body, covered in his blood, licking it before looking at the camera and doing a sinister grin at us, then like into the camera and that's it. Now, that was the theatrical ending. There is actually an original ending to this. For the film's theatrical release, they wanted to redo the ending. So, in the original alternate ending, what happens is Katie does throw Mika into the camera, but she doesn't like scream into the camera. She sort of stands there and then sits down and crouches. And about the next day, Katie's friend comes and makes her... In fact, no. She doesn't throw Mika into the camera in the alternate ending, no. But she still goes upstairs and sits down by the bed. And we hear all the distress and everything, like Katie's friend finding Mika's body. We hear it. The police come, and then at this point she's like back to normal, no longer possessed, and the police gun her down and she's dead. But they wanted to change the ending because, you know, this was the start of a marketing campaign. They wanted money. So, yeah. And they did. They then followed it by a franchise. So, pretty much from the 2000s, we had the Saw franchise, where every year would be treated to another installment of Saw. But in this decade, the 10s, they started doing it with the Paranormal Activity films. Even though at this point Paranormal Activity was only 2 years old, they kept the franchise alive by making more installments. So yeah, Paranormal Activity, the first film, I rank this at number 2. Yeah, second spot. Yeah, because we're about to get to the next one now, which is Paranormal Activity 2. Excuse me. So, in 2010, we got the second installment of the series, which had Mika and Katie in it, but it didn't focus on them two as much. This one, it was actually, this was released theatrically and had a better budget as well. Not only that, but better effects. This focused on Katie's family, Chrissy and some other people, her family and that. So, in this, we had... this one, it was directed by Todd Williams, and it starred... what's her name? I'm gonna butcher the name here. Spurger Graydon or something. Brian Bowen, Molly Epper or whatever. And it also had Katie from the first film in it. This was released in 2010, and basically in this, Chrissy is taunted by this entity, which we believe is the same entity, and she lives with her husband Daniel, her daughter Ali, and her son Hunter, who is an infant. And in this, we actually see a bit more in it. We see Katie is Chrissy's sister. We see Mika in this, and we see we actually find out that Chrissy and Katie's grandmother made a deal with some demon and instead of exchanging her soul for whatever reason, it would go to the firstborn male in their bloodline, and that is the baby Hunter. So the demon wants Hunter, and throughout this film we actually see a lot more in this. And I mean, yeah, when we seen the first film a year before, you think that I would be immune to this. Actually, I actually thought this one was more scary. Yeah, Paranormal Activity 2 was very scary. I was actually more jumped by this one than I were of the first one. In the first one, I would say there was only one jump scare. In this one, there was like a dozen jump scares, and yeah, I was dreading it every minute. I didn't find it scary or unsettling, I just kept dreading when the next jump scare was going to come from. But yeah, in the film, turns out the demon possesses Chrissy, and And we even see a dog in this. A dog, and every dog has that sixth sense. And the second film, the dog, we don't know what really happens to that dog. We know that the demon, does something to it where Ali and Daniel take it to the emergency vet at night. But I think the demon just wanted them out of the way so the demon can take full advantage of Chrissy. At first, Daniel not being convinced that Ali's progress that she's made on filming the Paranormal Activity is real. He actually soon discovers that, all this happening, the demon dragging Chrissy to the basement, possessing her and that. They actually call their nanny, who is a Hispanic woman who does this ritual that scares off spirits. And Daniel manages to get rid of the spirits. So there the family is, all back to normal, all jolly and happy. Still no dog in the picture. But this one, the second film, actually ties in with the first film. You see, this one, it is considered a prequel. In fact, it is a prequel, taking place just before the first film, but then actually going into the first film. So in it, we actually see Katie at one scene go home, and Mika's filming with the camera and that. We actually see it all tying together, and then the ending ties in. So basically, you need to watch the first film to get the ending of the second film, because at the end it carries straight on from the first film, where Katie is still coated in Mika's blood, and she kills Daniel and throws Chrissy into the camera and takes away baby Hunter, leaving his fate unknown for the time being. The daughter Ali, she was away on some school field trip, so she was kind of in the right place at the right time to avoid these kills or whatever. We don't know what happened with her, but we do know that her character actually came back in the fifth installment, the marked ones, which we will get to a little bit later in this video. So yeah, Paranormal Activity 2 I found was slightly better than the first one. Probably because it had better effects, a better budget and that, and it made a lot more money. This even inspired a Japanese one. Yeah, a Japanese sort of an unrated version. An unrated version called Paranormal Activity Tokyo Night. Or Paranormal Activity 2 Tokyo Night. I don't know about that one because it's in Japanese, but all I know is that this was probably the Japanese is trying to do a take on Paranormal Activity. I don't really know. But yeah, they did make a Japanese take on this one, I think. Don't know, I've not seen it. Anyway, yes, so after the first two films made a lot of money. Oh, before we get to the next installment, I rank Paranormal Activity 2 at number 1 in this. Yeah, I'm actually ranking the successor to the predecessor, because I do think this one was a lot more entertaining, a lot more drama and that. Even though I just liked it. So, the third installment, Paranormal Activity 3, came out in 2011. This time it was a prequel again, but it was like a prequel to a prequel, so a pre-prequel. This one took place in 1988, following Katie and Chrissy as little kids. Now, I always thought Chrissy, she looked like the older sister, but turns out she's the younger sister. Because, yeah. But Katie from the first film, she still makes an appearance in the beginning, before we go back in time to 1988 when they find VHS copies at the beginning. This one was written by... do excuse me. Was written by, at the time, future horror writer Christopher B. Landon. He actually wrote the second film, and he wrote the third film. This one was directed, though, by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman or something. This one, it starred Laura Bitten, Chris Smith, Chloe I'm butchering that name, and Jessica Tyler Brown. So, yeah, they dragged the whole thing out on Little Hunter's fate throughout, through a little bit longer, and we got to a third film taking place in 1988, where we follow Katie and Chrissy as kids with their mother and their stepfather, all experiencing paranormal activity. And Chrissy, being a little girl and that, she has this little imaginary friend called Toby, which is actually the demon from the previous films. Yeah, the demon in this gets a name, and his name is Toby, appearing to Chrissy, then eventually to Katie, and then strange happenings start going on in that film. In this, we actually meet their grandmother, Grandma Lewis, played by actress Hallie Foote. In this we see her in it. We see the grandmother, who looks like a harmless, kind, gentle grandmother, and then it turns out that she's actually got a sinister side to her. Turns out that she is part of a witch's coven. Yeah, the grandmother is a witch that worship the demon Toby, and she's part of a coven, and she kills their parents, and then and for some reason Katie and Chrissy have no memory of this as kids. Yeah, I mean, they still keep it found footage, but they do it in as VHS cameras, which I thought was impressive. This one I didn't think was as good as the second film, and I don't think it was as good as the first film. But this one, it gave us a bit of backstory of the girls, because Katie did mention in the first film all this started when she was 8 years old, and we actually find out in this one how it all started for them. Even though this is a prequel, you should probably watch the first two to get this one. So yeah, the third film. I saw this in cinemas too. I've seen them all in cinemas. The first time I watched the first one in cinemas, yeah, the only time people actually got out of their seats and screamed was at the end. The second film, a lot of people jumped out of their skins at this one, even me. And the third one, this one didn't have as many jump scares. It had a few jump scares, but not as many. But whenever I watch these films, I literally whimpered not because I was scared of it, not because I was scared of what was going on. I was just scared of the jumps. I was dreading the jump scares the most. The jump scares I was dreading the most. So anyway, yeah, Paranormal Activity 3 ends where Toby kills their stepfather, and the girls go off with Toby and their grandmother. We'd never get that explained, or how the girls don't remember. But yeah, that's just it. So, Paranormal Activity 3, I would rank this at number 3 in my rankings of the series. So yeah, Paranormal Activity 3, I rank at number 3. So, about another year later, in 2012, we got another installment, again directed by Henry Joost, whatever his name is, and Ariel. The same directors from the third film. Again, written by Christopher B. Landon, and it starred, this time it starred Catherine Newton, Matthew Shivery or something, and that. We got a whole new cast of this. Yeah, we got a brand new cast. We still got Katie in it. Yeah, we got the return of Katie. She was the only one that had been in them all at this point. And this time we actually find out what happened with Hunter. Yeah, this ties in with the fourth film. We find out what happens to Hunter, and that turns out that, Katie has been raising him. They live across the street from this family, and the demon Toby is obsessed with the family. But we actually find out in a twist of events that the little brother of Alex, that's the main protagonist in this one, is actually adopted, and he is actually Hunter. Yeah, so thinking, who's this kid then that we thought was Hunter? Turns out he's a proxy of Toby. And in this one, we don't get as many jump scares. And it only kind of really builds up towards the end of the film, in the finale. We actually see Katie, well, we assume is Katie. We actually find out that she is Toby possessing her. We even see that the kid who's posing as Katie's son becomes friends with the little brother in it, who turns out to be Hunter. This one doesn't have as many jump scares, but it's still... There are scenes in it that are unsettling, like one scene when Alex is asleep and she gets lifted up. And that... Yeah. There's a few jump scares that jump, but they're not really scary or anything. Like when she's on the bed on FaceTime and then she gets dragged backwards by the boyfriend, and that... The boyfriend, he gets killed in it, which I weren't expecting, when he gets up and then next thing Katie's behind him and twists his head around. I thought that was a bit brutal, but quite good. And at the end of this, basically, Alex's fate is unknown. She makes her way out of the house, but then discovers these, like, loads of women that assume are witches and that. And then next thing, Katie catches up with her and it cuts to black. And basically don't go expecting an answer anytime soon, because that never gets answered or resolved. We never know what happens. It just ends like that, abruptly, and we never know what happens. So, in 2013, we had no Paranormal Activity. No, they took a break for a year, but on the first week of January, New Year, we got a 5th film in the series, and that was Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones. So this was like a sort of prequel again. It was considered more of a spin-off. This was written and directed by Christopher B. Landon, so he actually wrote this one and directed it. This one, it starred Andrew Jacobs and George Diaz and Gabriella Walsh. This one, The Marked Ones... God, I got a right frog in my throat. This one, we actually find it's a teenage boy, and he's been a teenager, loving life, videoing everything and that, and soon discovers that he sees this, he summons this demon or some sort. He discovers he has a mark on him and he's marked, so he's the marked one. First we think he discovers this demon, thinks, are you being nice? Are you here to help us? And the demon's like, no. And yeah, we actually see what happens. In this we see how he goes from being a normal teenager to having all this supernatural stuff going on around him, all this paranormal activity, and eventually he gets consumed by Toby, and at one point, who is this? Jesse. Yeah, that's the main protagonist in this. Jesse and Hector and Marisol. At one point in this film, they actually get the help of Ali Ray from the second film in the series. Yeah. We get Ali return for a brief cameo and informs Jesse about all these things, like saying upon his 18th birthday. And in this we actually find out that 6 and 6 and 666 is 18. And yeah, devil's number, demonic entity and that. We then he like gets possessed, and at one point goes into this door where Hector follows, and oh yeah, Marisol. I don't know what happens to her now, but I don't think she makes it in this one. We actually see this tie-in with the first one, so Hector actually follows Jesse back in time, and they're in this house. Then we actually see Katie coming down the stairs, and then he's like he goes up to her, and then she like screams out, shouting, Mika! And then Mika comes down, and then we actually see her stabbing Mika to death. And then we think, oh, this is tying in with the first one. So he actually went back in time to the events of the first film. So, and then the film ends where it cuts to a possessed demonic Jesse, and then the film just ends there. Basically, you know what happens with Mika and Katie, but we don't know what happens with Jesse and Hector. So yeah, that's how that one ends. So yeah, this one. Now, before we move on to that one, I forgot to put in Paranormal Activity 4, where I rank that. I rank Paranormal Activity 4 at number 4, and the marked ones, Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, at number 5. So, do excuse the noise downstairs, the dog's barking. Finally, in 2015, we got our final installment of the series, Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. This one took place around Christmas time, and and this one, the tagline for it is, for the first time you will see the activity. So in this one, it was done in 3D, a 3D found footage film, thinking how could they do that? And we do get it, we do see the 3D effects, and are they necessary? No, I don't think so anyway. I don't think they're necessary. So this one, it was directed by Gregory Plotkin, and it starred Chris J. Murray, Britt Shaw, Dan Gill, Ivy George, and Olivia Taylor Dudley. So, in this one, again, it follows a family around Christmas time, and basically, there isn't much of a connection with these ones. We get Toby in it, and that's it. This time, we don't even get a cameo from Katie or anyone from the previous films. In this one, we actually see the Ghost Dimension, and when we go to the Ghost Dimension, apparently Toby wants a body so he could become whole or something. I don't know, but this one, it ends a bit crap. In this, apparently we see Toby, we see bits of him, we even see his feet at the end, but we never actually see the whole of him at all. And that was a little bit of a disappointment, and this was the last film in the franchise that we got, released in October 2015, and yeah, to be honest, this one, it was even written by Adam Black, Andrew Summer, I'm butchering these names, Adam Summer, and yeah, it was written by 4 people, and yeah, I just think this wasn't good. This is probably the worst one in the series. I mean, I know it takes place at Christmas and that, but to be honest, I just didn't care for this one. I've only watched it twice, and the second time was for research for this episode of Horror Talk I'm doing. But yeah, wasn't a huge fan at all of this one. And it was a little bit of a disappointment, and I think it pretty much killed the franchise. So, throughout 2007 to 2015, we had a good run of Paranormal Activity franchises. Should they try and make another Paranormal Activity or attempt somewhat sort of a sequel reboot? No. They need to leave this alone now. And yeah, obviously, you know by now, I rank Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, at number 6 in this. So my rankings for the Paranormal Activity films are: number 6, it is The Ghost Dimension; number 5, the marked ones; number 4, Paranormal Activity 4; number 3, Paranormal Activity 3; number 2, Paranormal Activity; and number 1, Paranormal Activity 2. So yeah, I think this franchise has had its day, and I think they knew when to stop. You know, stopped at 6, which I think was a good move. Yeah, so yeah, it started off good. And it got good, it got better, but then it just declined and that in quality. So, yeah, is this a franchise worth checking out? Absolutely. It is a good series, great found footage. This even inspired me to write a found footage film. I mean, I've wrote it, but I've never actually got off my arse and filmed it. Maybe I should, if I can get some actors that are willing to work for free. Yeah, so Paranormal Activity, it was a good franchise, but I think they knew when to stop on this one. So yeah, I don't think I've got anything more to say on this series. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below, what do you think to this one? What's your favourite film in the franchise? How would you rank them? What's your favourite moment from the series? Let me know all that down in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and to hit that notification bell. All of my social media links are linked down below in the description, so be sure to check all that out. I have been Random Ross, and this has been Horror Talk on the Paranormal Activity franchise. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. So yeah, until next time, don't have nightmares.